Welcome to Red Hot Mindset. I'm your host, Gabe Cox, and through this podcast, I'm on a mission to help you step into the fire of refinement so you can realize your full potential. I do this by helping you overcome your mental barriers through a faith-based approach of building inner strength and resilience. Each episode, I will bring you thought process, productivity tips, and inspirational stories from everyday people, all so you can move confidently toward your goals. As a running enthusiast, I believe that life is one massive marathon, and it's up to you to run your own race and to finish it well. Step into the fire with me because I know you will come out stronger. The 2020 Boston Marathon is officially canceled, or it went virtual. But that actually means it's been canceled because much of the experience is being in Boston, soaking up the rich history and surrounding yourself with others who fought to snag a bid to run in the race itself. Honestly, I wasn't surprised that the Boston Athletic Association made the decision to cancel. And really, it probably was the right call. Many international runners wouldn't have been able to participate because of the shutdowns. And I'm sure there would have been way too many stipulations on social distancing that would have completely altered the experience anyway. Part of the experience is the massive amount of runners and not being able to move for the first few miles. And another part of the experience is all the fans along the way cheering their hearts out for you as you pass them. And I'm sure that in the fall, this wasn't going to happen. But even though I kind of figured it would get canceled, the sting of the official announcement was still very real. It hurt. It hurt knowing all the hours that went into training to qualify for the race, and it hurt knowing how patient we all had been when it was first postponed to now being canceled. It hurt most knowing that what I went through between qualifying to now and not getting a shot at my victory run this year. I don't consider the virtual race the experience of a lifetime. Now, I might run it, but I just don't see it the same as being there in person. And here's what I mean by what I've gone through from the day I qualified to now. I want to give you a little bit of history or a little bit of background. In 2018, in October, I qualified for my second time at the St. George Marathon. So this would be my second time running Boston. Then, shortly after on a wintry run, I slipped on black ice and broke my ankle in December of 2018. And I was off my foot completely for almost 3 months. No running, really not much working out because there wasn't much to be able to do. I couldn't do heavy lifting, so the light weights in my arms was about all I could do. Now, in June of 2019, I began learning to run again. And I say learning because I started at about 10 seconds of running and 5 minutes of walking and had to slowly progress back into it. And it took months. Every step was painful, and sometimes it still is today. There are times when my ankle will flare up and it will be annoying to run, and I don't have a good push off anymore, and it just gets really stiff really easy. In the fall of 2019, so around October timeframe, I did start more running than walking and started running more consistently. And I loved that. It felt like I was having some small victories in overcoming this injury. And then November 2019 rolled around, and I actually had to start beginning to train for the 2020 Boston Marathon. Now, after not running much, this was a feat in itself. I didn't know how I was going to go from running, a few miles every few days to training for a marathon and running a marathon at the end. But I kept going, and I got to about 15 miles was my longest run I did by the time the marathon was postponed. So in in March, we found out that the marathon was going to be postponed due to COVID-19, and it was rescheduled for September 14th, 2020. So it was supposed to happen this year, but this past week, the race was officially canceled for 2020 altogether. Now, the good news is that they are running the race virtually for any 2020 qualifiers, and we are also able to reapply to run in the 2021 Boston Marathon. Now, thankfully, with a 12-minute buffer in my qualifying time, I'm fairly certain I will be there next April. This has been a roller coaster of a ride, but it is an event that will go down in history, so I guess I'm glad I'll be a part of it. The first Boston Marathon I ran was in 2016, and that was the 50th anniversary of women being able to run in the Boston Marathon. And it was also the year that a couple of the Boston bombing survivors ran in the marathon as well. And I remember the moment that I passed by Patrick's Downs as he's running on his prosthetic leg, and everyone is cheering, Patrick, Patrick. And it was a really cool and sobering experience. It actually made me tear up as I passed by, just knowing the hard work that it took for him to go from the Boston bombing and losing a leg to running in a marathon. And that was a neat experience in itself. So I feel like that marathon was special. And now this year, the 2020 marathon is one we are never going to forget. So this one is special in itself as well. Now, I know others are in the same boat of disappointment. We all have our own stories of how we qualified for Boston and what significance the race has in our lives. My heart really aches for those who qualified for the very first time because they may not get their shot at it at the 2021 race. 2021, the 2021, however you say that. But so a first time Boston Marathon qualifier not being able to run is heartbreaking. I know what it was like my first Boston Marathon. First and only, really, so far, but it was quite the experience. And it was like a huge dream come true because of the victory that it had in my life, just all the little victories I had along the way. So I feel for those who aren't able to get that shot this year. Now, here's what the official announcement in my email box said. It said, Dear Marathoner, we hope this message finds you healthy and well. Today we write to notify you that the 124th Boston Marathon will be held as a virtual event following Boston Mayor Martin Walsh's cancellation of the marathon as a mass participation road running event due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The virtual Boston Marathon will be complemented by a series of virtual events throughout the second week of September. Our top priority continues to be safeguarding the health of the community, as well as our staff, participants, volunteers, spectators, and supporters, said Tom Grilk, CEO of the BAA, which is the Boston Athletic Association. While we cannot bring the world to Boston in September, we plan to bring Boston to the world for an historic 125th Boston Marathon. I feel as though the BAA is trying to make it right and doing its very best. We will have an option to run virtually in September for the 2020 race, and we will also be allowed to register for and hope to be accepted to the 2021 Boston Marathon. The only catch is that there will be a pool of probably around 60,000 runners, if not more, vying for a spot, and definitely not enough space for everyone. The 2021 race will consist of qualifiers from September of 2018 through 2020, and the fastest times in each age group wins out. Now, there aren't going to be very many races between March and September of 2020, but there have been quite a few in the winter and fall of 2019. And so this means that the time buffer a runner needs will be significantly higher than normal. I also wonder if they won't be able to have as many runners as they normally do because of the social distancing and things like that. Now, I don't know. Thousands of runners, what does it matter adding another thousands? But I believe the average buffer time needed for 2020 was around a minute and 39 seconds. And this was after increasing the time standards and making them more difficult already. So my guess is that we'll need at least a 4-minute buffer to ensure a spot in the race. It could even be significantly higher than that. So why does it all matter anyway? It's just a silly little race, isn't it? Well, it is just a race, but to runners, it plays a significant role and is highly sought after in the community. When you run in Boston, it's a way of separating yourself and getting a chance to run with the best. For one day, you feel like an elite without actually being one. I consider this Boston Marathon my victory run. All that I've gone through in the past 2 years and all the struggles I've had leading up to this race, they make it even more of a sweet victory. I think we all can relate to a form of this in our own lives. Our struggles we go through, our disappointments that we encounter, our circumstances that we face, all of them can lead us into our own victory run. But the path is unknown. We don't know how long the struggles will last. We have to find ways to turn that disappointment into the positive. We have to find constructive ways to react to our circumstances. Have you had any disappointments in the season? I'm guessing you have, and you are struggling through your own trials and tribulations of today. And that's why this episode matters to you. Because we only have control over two things. I talk about it all the time: our actions and our attitudes. But these two things are huge and they matter. We can't control these circumstances or the weather or the people. We can't control that the marathon was canceled. Or rather than saying marathon, you can insert your event or your disappointment right in there. We can't control blank was canceled. All we can control is how we will react to the circumstances in front of us. Now, the best advice I can give if you are a qualifier is to just enjoy the journey. This is the first time in Boston history that they've actually had to cancel the event. And we will be the first and probably the only virtual Boston Marathon runners. Think of it as an epic year and choose to have a positive attitude toward it. I encourage all 2020 qualifiers to make the most of the virtual race. Train to make it more of a pleasure run out in nature. Find a fun place to create your race course. Don't train for speed or for time goals. Just train because you can. Train because you earned it. Get out there and prove to yourself that you are meant to be a part of the elite club. You earned your spot by qualifying, so now show your support by running. Then in November, you can train for a time goal, work on speed, and get out there in the 2021 race and kick some butt. You know, training for a virtual race is slightly different from training for a physical one, especially right now as we embark on the hotter season. I would encourage runners not to overtrain, but to work on strength and agility instead. This is because the adrenaline of race day just won't be there for a virtual race. It's a completely different atmosphere running alone or with a buddy than standing at the start line with thousands of others rearing to go. You may feel alone in the season. And if that's the case, I encourage you to find a buddy that you can link arms with and get through it together. Accountability and community are the two things that will build you up and keep you going. These two essentials create strength in your life. When the going gets tough, the tough find community and support. This marathon training cycle, or this season, is about the mind. It's the perfect time to work on the mental training, which really, in my opinion, is as important, if not more important, than the physical training itself. This truly is mind over marathon. Now, if you haven't gotten a chance to snag a copy of Mind Over Marathon, which is my new book that released in the fall, I highly encourage you to grab a copy and read it for yourself. It's really about taking a dream from inception to a flourishing finish. I use the principles that I learned as I was qualifying for the Boston Marathon for the first time. And it's a really fun little story. It's a self help personal development book, and it has a lot of application in it. So you can actually do some of the tasks involved in going after your own dream or your own goal. This is the perfect season to do that. You can find it on Amazon if you search Mind Over Marathon or search Gabe Cox. And I'll also leave a link in the show notes for you. I also have, if you're interested in checking out 2 chapters before you buy it, I do have a link for you to find 2 free chapters. It's actually chapter 2 and chapter 3. And I think you'll really like it. Now, my next book that I've been writing is actually dependent on my running and finishing the Boston Marathon. So it's almost like my goal in writing the book is postponed as well. It is my victory run, and I know it is many others as well. Their stories of overcoming, of struggle victory, of training when they didn't want to, of fighting the mental battle that's raging inside. These stories need to be shared. And we will all have our victory run if we stick it out. Now, I know I talked about accountability and community being 2 super important things. And if you are struggling to find community right now, I encourage you to come into our group online. It's a free group. It's called Red Hot Mindset Community. Actually, it's called Red Hot Winners Community. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the podcast topics, but have really good discussions just related to goals and mindset and, life struggles. So come join us. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well for that. But one thing I don't want you to do is I don't want you to give up on your dreams, especially in this season. This season is important for us to be visionaries and to come up with something that we want to do or something we want to be. It's important to have dreams, especially in the midst of this chaos. There will be bumps along the way, but it's just part of the adventure. Don't let the giants take you out. Your dream is worth it. You are worth it. And I don't want you to ever forget that. I believe in you. Bye, winner. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time and I hope you did too. Before we go though, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform if you haven't already. This will make sure you have access to all future episodes so you don't miss any of them. If you resonated with this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or Spotify, as reviews are an important part of growing this podcast and helping it reach the listeners who would love to add it to their library. If you have any friends or family who you think would enjoy this podcast, be sure to take a screenshot and share it with them. If you're not a part of the free Red Hot Winners online community, consider joining us. It's a community built to provide support, mindset, and encouragement as you go after your biggest goals, and we can continue today's conversation over there. Head on over to www.redhotmindset.com to check out the show notes and find the link to join the community. I hope you step into the fire with me each and every episode because I know you will come out stronger. That's all for now. Talk with you real soon. Bye, winner.